Today's guest has spent over 25 years in the personal development industry, helping people capture more minds and profits. Tony Rubleski is the best-selling author of the Mind Capture book series and founder of the Mind Capture Bootcamp. He's a sought-after speaker and who's addressed audiences worldwide. His work has been featured in major outlets including Toastmasters International Magazine, NPR, Entrepreneur Radio, and even CNN and Fox. He's also an executive coach with a message that has inspired leaders across sales, psychology, and education. This conversation is part of the special Mind Capture Bootcamp series. Here on the Lead Machine Growth Show, I'm talking with several of the leaders, especially the founder here today, so you can get a sneak peek of the ideas, energy, and inspiration waiting for you in Grand Rapids this November. This theme this year is Leadership Matters, especially now. And, you know, Tony and I go way back. We've been friends since I think I met him first in 2005 when you launched your first book. We've hosted a number of events, the 2013 Think and Grow Rich Summit, the 2014 or 15, I forget which, Ultimate Mastermind Summit. We've co-hosted mastermind events, and now we've come full circle collaborating again on this boot camp. And so today is really special for me. I just welcome you and appreciate the opportunity to work with you again, Tony. So thank you so much.
Well, back at you, my friend. And yeah, we've come full circle 20 years later, and here we are. Thank God.
Yeah, yeah. God is good all the time.
Amen.
So you've been leading the mind capture movement for decades. What was the spark that originally got your passion going to say, hey, I'm going to quit what I'm doing now and I'm just going to go in this other direction, pivot, as they say. When COVID came out, everyone was pivoting. So how did you pivot, and what was that initial spark that caused that?
Well, it's a
Caused
great
that
opening
movement?
question. It's a great opening question, Paul, because it's weird how decades go by. And, we started the company in February of 2005. So it's been 20 years now. And I look at it and I go, number one was a leap of faith. I definitely have to thank my family and friends and some mentors that said, hey, go. And my former employer at the time, Paul, I was in the advertising agency business for a few years as a VP, calling on all sorts of accounts. I loved it. It was like this ultimate learning laboratory to test branding and direct response. Wrote a book in 2003. It released in 2004. Some big names, Dan Kennedy, Brian Tracy, I could go on and on, endorsed it. And I thought,
Hmm.
you have to go out and teach now. I love to teach, Paul. We met at, I think, at a Chamber of Commerce event in Traverse City. That's where the
Yeah.
point of origin was for us to intersect. But these mentors, when they promoted me, I was like 31 years old. I'm like, what do I do? Because now I felt some pressure, Paul. Like they
Hmm.
believe in my teaching and my methodology of mind capture, which is how do you get attention? And now it's
Hmm.
like, go promote it. So I have to be candid 20 years looking back in the rearview mirror a little bit. There was some internal pressure that these big names, men and women, said, you know what you're doing, go. So my whole premise the last 20 plus years has been the war of attention, or what I call mind capture. And the latest data from Microsoft last year is that we're down to 8 seconds, Paul, on average
Yeah.
with attention span. It's less than a goldfish. So when I'm doing keynotes, I did one in Dallas last week for 600 plus people. I opened up with that to say, hey, you may not like some of the things I'm going to share with you, pick and choose, but we're all trying to get this valuable thing of attention or mind capture. So it's a very short synopsis to a good opening question. And here we are. And in my faith walk, by the grace of God, still out there doing it because it's not easy, but I love what I do, Paul. It's a pleasure and a joy to teach.
Yeah, and we had a guest speaker at our mastermind in our groups. Anne Convery was her name, and she talked
Yeah.
about the lizard brain, and that just brought the science to the fact that the attention spans are just getting so short that it's almost you've got to shock people, but you've got to do it with integrity. I think you can't be clickbait. You need to have authenticity, which is another thing that you've been teaching for this whole time. How do you overcome that? Okay, I've got this pressure. These people believe in me. Do I believe in me? How did you get over that?
Well, I think it took many, many years. And there's still that moment with those 50,000 plus thoughts we all have in our head each day, where sometimes that
Hmm.
thought will creep in like, do you really know who you are? Or do you really believe this? And I do, Paul. But I think that mind, the subconscious mind, is something that we're still always exploring our entire lifespan. So I look at it and say, you know what? Keep doing good work. You're going to catch some resistance, as Seth Godin taught me, that the resistance is your natural procrastination. It's that little voice of doubt. As Napoleon Hill would say, the Outwitting the Devil classic, it's
Hmm.
that non-drifter is the voice of getting things done. In that book, he talks about the drifter, which oftentimes to me is the battle of our attention and our focus, Paul. And it's
Hmm.
easy to get distracted. There is creature comforts everywhere we turn. I battle
Hmm.
with our team in a good way to say, hey, how do we handle social media? We're out there actively every day promoting on social media. How do I delegate that effectively, Paul? Because it's
Hmm.
addictive. And when I go on my phone, like I'm sure most of the audience here, I might look at it, 10 minutes. Sometimes it's a half hour. I'm like, I need to set the phone down, walk away from it. So the war of attention is real. I didn't know 20 plus years later, after the first mind capture, the attention problem would get 10 times worse. Social media,
Yeah.
instant access, Wi-Fi everywhere you go, amazing tons of content that is highly addictive if we don't watch it. There are people that go to
Yeah.
seminars that are seminar junkies, Paul. We've seen
Hmm.
them,
I
but
know. We
that's
know
changed
them.
a lot. And I've been like that for years where I just can't stop learning, where sometimes I'll take a time out. But back to your point, this war of attention is very real. It's something that we talk a lot about in all of our events. When I do national keynotes, I bring it up because it's the elephant in the room of authenticity. And
Mhm.
people all struggle, I believe, to some degree with imposter syndrome. It's a common term, but my take on it is simply this: it's that little voice of self-doubt. It's that nagging critic. It's the ex-spouse. It's the former business partner that didn't go well. Maybe it's your own
Mhm.
kids sometimes, Paul, that
Yeah.
we let them get into our head. And there's nothing wrong with, subjective and critical feedback. But if we weigh it too heavily, it can stop us in our tracks. So my last several books have been about positive disruption in the mind capture process. How do you continue to inspire yourself? And you see it all online. Motivation doesn't work. A lot of that's shock value and it's clickbait, Paul. To your
Yeah.
point, I call BS
Hmm.
on it. It's the same thing. What are you going to do to get yourself, whatever you have to do to get taking action? And as we talk about the event in this event will force action because you number one, you made it there. And there's some other cool things I'll reveal a little bit later on in our interview that you and I know live events change lives, Paul. We met at a
Oh yeah.
live event, and I'm seeing
Hmm.
more hunger from meeting planners that hire me or that I consult with as a professional meeting planner myself. Like, look, people are hungry for face-to-face, in-person events again. And we're very blessed and fortunate that our events keep growing and they expand in ways we can't see because of those dynamics.
Yeah. So speaking of the event, so it's Trailblazer Leadership lessons. It's we need leadership now. So what are some of the your talk rather is the Trailblazer Leadership to keep you sane in turbulent times? What are some of the takeaways from that you want to convey to the audience and get them into action?
Well, ironically, it's based on the book Trailblazers, which we put out in 2018. It hit number one on Amazon, and then we were getting ready to go tour, Paul, and then COVID hit. So like everybody
Yeah.
else, we had this great book that was very well received, got really good critical reviews and peer reviews. But what I'm going to share with the theme this year, which is like you said, leadership matters, especially now, I'm going back to that book. And here's why. The
Mm.
marketplace leaders from HR to sales to CEOs to boardroom are like, we need that talk. We need that message right now. So I'm going to be opening up the conference in Grand Rapids on November 6th with Trailblazer leadership lessons. It'll be what I call 2.0 because everything's changing, Paul. So those that have read
Hmm.
the book or saw me speak and teach it, or maybe heard a keynote a few years ago, it's modified again because everything's changed the last 5 years so drastically, from AI to attention spans to remote work, the challenge of geopolitical, all the issues with they're always going on, Paul, that are designed to distract, and more importantly, they're trying to divide us, Paul. So big thing, if someone's been to the event, is planning on going, or even if you're new, you'll find that we have a kind of a rule. When you walk into the boot camp, leave your attitude at the door. Bring an open mind. We're here to help each other. Doesn't mean we can't give critical feedback, Paul. That's being authentic. Okay. But it's done from a
Yeah.
place of service, not to sabotage somebody or to cut people down. So again, the last 18 months, there's been more calls and requests for that talk based on that book. And we've upgraded again because I'm always interviewing people like you do, where I meet them on the road and they're at my events. So again, leadership, it's a timeless topic. I'll present my interpretation of it, my lens, which is Trailblazer Leadership.
Yeah, so let's unpack Trailblazer for I recall the book. I think you and I were still working together when you were writing that. So give us a little glimpse of the some of the trailblazers that you were inspired by that inspired this leadership book. Because it was you really spent a lot of time on the mind capture, and I think you've nailed it, and it just keeps getting more and more important. But what was that? What was the thing that made you switch into the leadership? I mean, you obviously recognize something in the people that you're running with and you've been interviewing.
Well, I think the big thing, Paul, was a mutual friend, Jim Palmer. And I'm very detailed, almost anal retentive about giving credit to source. You and I run a
Mhm.
call with Jim Palmer, if I recall.
Yeah.
And we're looking
Yeah.
at this has been in 2014, 15-ish. I was talking
Hmm.
about another mind capture book. And Jim, as a good coach, brought an unbiased opinion and listened. He said, you know what?
Hmm.
You've got all these interviews. Because remember, I did captured wisdom interview CDs for
Oh yeah.
years. People subscribe to
Hmm.
it. And so he
Yeah.
goes, you're sitting, I'll condense it down and paraphrase what he said, because you're sitting on all these interviews. There's gold in those interviews that you've taped, and you have reciprocal rights, so you can use them. So after that coaching call with Jim, I changed direction completely. I went, there's some wisdom here. We've got
Hmm.
all these things that are very valuable. Now it's how do we curate it, condense it, and make it applicable to serve the market. There has to be a
Yeah.
demand in the market to write a book, Paul. And again,
Hmm.
we have book number 10 coming out right around the boot camp. It'll be late this year. So I've learned over the years to get the right coaching, to be open to what the market really wants, not always what I want, Paul. I've written a couple
Yeah.
books in the 10 that are really about what I want to do. And ironically, some have done well and some have been more of like a vanity small print run. Okay. But Jim
Yeah.
was spot on. So the trailblazers that we've interviewed in the book are Dave Liniger from Remax, to Seth Godin, who I mentioned earlier, to head coaches that have won Stanley Cups like Dan Bilesma with the Pittsburgh Penguins when he was a coach. So that
Hmm.
information, that content is very evergreen. And what the whole goal of the book was this: Tony Robbins. I always joke he's the other Tony R in the industry,
Yeah.
with massive
Yeah.
respect to Tony. Okay, he's one of the trailblazers of our personal development industry. He
Yeah.
always says for years, longer than I have, success leaves clues. And the whole goal of Trailblazers was let's reveal the clues. So we came up with the 7 characteristics that all Trailblazers have in common. So, in respect to time, I'll give you two.
Yeah.
One is thick skin. Dan Kennedy was the final interview that made that book cut. And Dan is tough, arguably almost impossible to reach, like Howard Hughes of our time, direct response
Mm.
guy, one of my mentors for 30 plus years. But to get Dan in that book was a perfect example of thick skin. His story of, just like Rocky Balboa getting knocked down, knocked down, knocked down, and then becoming one of the legends of really almost the internet marketing space, Paul. You look at Russell
Hmm.
Brunson bought Dan's, assets and is remarketing Dan and keeping Dan's message alive. But Dan's a big one.
Yeah.
We, obviously Dave Liniger, the founder of Remax, the huge global real estate company. So there's just been a very fortunate blessing. They let me interview him, and then we were able to tape it. And with that, now it's become very common, Paul, the last few years with the rise of podcasting becoming very mainstream. But we were doing this back in the late 2000s and early 2010s, recording these interviews.
Yeah.
So that's a couple of the things that we'll talk about in Grand Rapids during the keynote. And I'm going to add a new, what I call eighth characteristic in Grand Rapids. And I'll give you a clue.
Ah.
It involves, I'm pointing at my ear, the lost art of listening.
Mm.
And it's challenging to teach listening, but I'm going to talk about why that's so relevant for the leaders of the future in Grand Rapids.
Awesome. So, you mentioned a little bit earlier you're gonna reveal a little bit more. And so I'm gonna ask you this, but I'd like you to just kind of riff on what you'd really like to reveal. But what's one practical move a leader can take today to better navigate turbulent times? And then let's dive in a little bit more into what you'd like to share with our audience today.
The simplest thing, because I'm going to look at, okay, if I'm going to teach it, I better follow a lot of these principles. Okay. I'm humans. Doesn't
Hmm.
mean I'm perfect. We did something just last night. We rolled out 2 examples of the latest book cover for book number 10 in the series. Okay.
Hmm.
And why we did that for a variety of reasons, but here's the key thing. The amount of feedback we got just off one Facebook post, Paul, comparing the
Hmm.
covers with design and what do you think? It's letting our audience have a voice. So we have to listen. So by putting out things to our top clients, fans, book readers, they get sneak peek previews, but we also give them a voice in it. So it goes back to that point about listening, Paul, that, okay, we could have our decision of our book cover and what we're going to do. Why not put it out to the fans to weigh in? Let them co-create with some of the ideas. Doesn't mean we're going to implement them all. That's not practical or real.
Yeah.
However, there's already some gold I looked at this morning before we got on the interview that we hadn't thought of. I'm like, this is why you put it out there. So if I'm a leader, here's the parallel or the analogy.
Hmm.
Ask your best leaders, what do we need to do to keep growing? What do we need to do to get better so we don't lose good people or our top customers? It's a positive and a negative question. Can't have one without
Hmm.
the other. It's yin and yang, okay? So we learn a lot from our successes, the multiplier effect to grow. We also learn from things we shouldn't be doing or things that are ticking off our team or our customers that unless we ask the troops at all levels, we don't know as a leader. So the top leaders to me are constantly getting data from the battlefield or the market space of what is changing. And to me, it's no longer an option, Paul. With AI, with ease of entry into the market, there's frictionless competition where people can just throw a website up and with AI be off to the races in a couple of days. It's a unique point in marketing history as a marketing geek and an ace that you can test stuff now in real time. And with AI, who
Yeah.
knows where that's going to go the next 12 to 18 months? Because what I'm hearing from the top AI founders and interviews I listen to and people that we're bringing like in to the event, Jonathan Mass, we're flying him in.
Hmm.
I'm going to be sitting there like a kid at Christmas going, I have to bring a very open mind with our team along with the audience to go into an area that's kind of scary, Paul, for a lot of people, because humans don't like that much change, but we're in a great,
No.
huge time of change. And to deny it is just to be like, do you take a horse and buggy to work? you know? So it's
Yeah.
a practical way not to scare people, but to empower. Jonathan, I've met him over the years many times, is a great teacher, and he makes it more practical for the masses. I said, look, I want it for small, mid-sized companies or sales
Hmm.
professionals or entrepreneurs or artists in our audience, because we get an eclectic group, as you know, at the boot camp. It's like this
Yeah.
wild group of free thinkers that are there to help each other. And they're also very independent. So I love the fact that, when you mention this long kind of roundabout answer here, that
Hmm.
you've got to be able to continue to adapt. So I hope that helps a little bit because there's so much more I could plume down deep, but in respect to time in the audience, there should be a couple nuggets in there.
Yeah, there sure are. I do want to kind of poke a little bit at why do you think, and I know this firsthand, why do you think that leaders resist asking the troops, asking, especially asking the customers? It's easier to ask your troops, but for them it seems harder to ask the customers, ask your clients, ask your biggest partners because you're afraid. What do you think?
Boy, I've never been asked that, Paul.
Yeah.
It's a deep question. My gut reaction initially says, I think it's fear and habit force. Habit force is one of your key areas you teach very well and you lead
Hmm.
people with habits. But I think we get stuck in our ways. And the top clients that I work with and choose to work with, they're very open-minded. Okay. They have to be because I'm a little crazy at times with my marketing ideas. Okay. That's the
Yeah.
Dan Kennedy training all these years. But you
Hmm.
look at the serious point, I think you get some of the folks that are in that echo chamber of I know what I'm doing, and there's too much ego there, Paul. It's an unhealthy ego, borderlining arrogance. And I'm not saying all leaders are bad, because we're going to attract the ones at the event or those that have already come on that have this open mindset. They're our tribe, Paul. But there are certain companies and industries I won't work with. Their leaders just don't get it. They want to hire me sometimes to do a talk, but their corporate messaging and their culture is so incongruent with my philosophy. I can't take the assignment, Paul. I don't want to fire
Yeah.
up 500 people and they go, oh yeah, wait till 2 days from now. CEO is going to go back to the same old thing. I've done a few of those over the years. You don't know sometimes till after you leave or you hear it
Hmm.
at the event. So to me, it's these leaders that have the open mind can set their ego to the side at times. We always say in the beginning of the event, you'll see this in Grand Rapids. Hey, put your ego at the door and be here to help each other. Because there could be a conversation with someone at your mastermind table next to you that produces millions of dollars if you're
Yeah.
open-minded. Conversely,
Hmm.
you might give a referral to someone that changes their entire business. I've seen it time and time again, Paul. People that are doing joint ventures from events that we hosted 10, 12 years ago, or they've written books together, or one hires the other to work for the other, or vice versa. So the beauty of in-person, again, back to leadership, is that if you get in the right room, and sometimes you're not the smartest, magical things happen, Paul. Again, I've seen it with events that I go to as well.
Well, you hit on something that that we both really love to do, and we I do this in my teaching all the time is the mastermind model. So tell
Mhm.
us about the live mastermind that you're planning, because I know that's there's not been a boot camp that I've ever been to of yours that we didn't have some sort of masterminding exercise.
Yeah. It's really the central component of Mind Capture Bootcamp is a 2 hour mastermind session. We do it in the afternoon every year. If we didn't, I would have rebellion from attendees and alumni. They'd be like,
Yeah,
"Where's the
yeah,
mastermind?" And at the
right.
end of it, you almost have to crowbar people apart because what it is essentially is we get a table of 6 or 8 people at a round. You make sure that your biggest competitor isn't sitting with you or your fellow coworkers so you can be honest. We have the attendees use discretion. We show an example of how to do it. We do a live demonstration. We call it a hot seat of someone in front of the room. We say, look, you've got 10 to 12 minutes based on the schedule, Paul, is that you can
Hmm.
give us your biggest challenge or opportunity and you put it out to the table and the table weighs in. And it's fascinating because it's called best practices in a lot of your HR circles. We're sharing best practices, but you might have someone in a completely different industry that gives you an idea to left field that you've never thought of, that if you have the guts to write it down and actually move on it, it can revolutionize your business. So
Hmm.
it's really an exchange of best practices, referrals, resources. Hey, you know what? Some people are going to be like, you might want to reconsider the idea. They're not there to talk you out of it, but you might have someone that's already been down the path you're going and they can caution you to save you time, money, and frustration. So it's beautiful to watch the collaboration to serve each other. When it comes from ancient cultures, from biblical times, Paul, you seek wise counsel to councils of boards of directors. And more recently, the last
Hmm.
100 years, Napoleon Hill in the book Think and Grow Rich, really in our industry coined the term the mastermind principle. So it's nothing new. It's an
Yeah.
interesting way of looking at collaboration in an age where you have to really, what Dan Kennedy said in our interview, you're in an era of co-opetition where you have to cooperate sometimes with your competition. So it's a strange, unique word he came up with, but sometimes your former competitor you might joint venture with on a project. And at times you might have to remove yourself because it's direct competition. So that competitive
Hmm.
environment that we're in, Silicon Valley gets it. A lot of your authors understand it. You're there to help each other versus trying to do it all on your
Right. And one more thing about the mastermind, Tony, that I really love is having that open mind. You mentioned open mind earlier.
own.
Uh, when someone comes up with an idea that you haven't thought of, if you immediately say, "Oh, that won't work," you need to embrace those ideas and write them down. Someone should be writing them down so that you
Yeah.
can come back to them and say, "Okay, I hadn't thought about, but really this could work if I did this and this, or I might modify it." But those are the gold that happen in those live masterminds, which I think is so important and so valuable.
Yeah, I'll give you an alliteration. I mean, if someone said to me, I'll give it what I call the 3 eyes. It's just hit me a couple days ago driving. Okay. The whole goal is we infuse ideas at the event into your mind, tips and strategies. The infusion from the
Hmm.
speakers on stage, the entrepreneur panel where there's Q&A and people can ask questions of successful entrepreneurs, then the infusion at the mastermind. The second eye is how do you interact? You're going to be forced to interact with others. So you're going to meet people that are beyond cool. They're there to serve each other. And sometimes people go to events like I do to meet the right people in the room
Hmm.
versus trying to email them and text them and send them videos and TikTok. You get access, Paul. So that's the third eye is you get inspired to take action. The last
Hmm.
thing we say every year at the boot camp is I want everybody to take, usually me from stage or Kelsey, take Write down, you got 5 minutes, circle one or two of the key things you took from today that you plan to work on later today or the next day. And what it does, it helps crystallize the notes that people take either on their phone, or a lot of people handwrite notes. It's kinesthetically easier to
Hmm.
learn that way and you remember more. But we challenge them to not leave without an action plan of one or two things to get active on when they leave the boot camp. Some people do it during the boot camp. They're like, I already texted one of my referral partners. Hey, I already talked to my designer. Hey, we're going to check out Facebook ads with our social media team. So you see people moving on it right then and there, which is also very, very rare, Paul, but it's also a huge
Hmm.
blessing of a live event.
Yeah, and I like I've interviewed some of the speakers that are going to be there, and there's some really interesting stuff that they're going to be doing live and sharing with people that can take action right away, especially with AI. I'm really excited about that. So, what excites you most about this year's boot camp?
It's I'm really close to it. So like I'm in the trees. So a little grain of salt here. I really believe the lineup, and we've had great lineups. So it's of massive
Hmm.
respect to alumni, speakers, and teachers. This lineup, to get the talent we got with the theme, to really connect the theme and the level of excitement they have. Like you've interviewed a lot of them. They're
Hmm.
beyond excited to not only attend, but promote it to their tribes and their audiences. This is kind of unique. I know we've been building the event up the last few years post COVID. So it just feels like we have the right theme, the right faculty, and we've already got a lot of really great sponsors and signups on that have never been to a boot camp, Paul. So
Hmm.
we're really flipping the car over and saying, let's kind of shake this entire event up, and it will be our biggest event ever. The numbers already are tracking as we record this. So there's energy, there is talent there, and there's a willingness that the faculty wants to promote the heck out of this to their folks to invite. So what you and I, it used to be a regional event, will be a national event. And I don't have the list in front of me, but people that are flying in from all sorts of different places and cities and states is already like mind bending to me. And we're just starting to roll a lot of our back to school promotions after our interview, Paul. So
Hmm.
that's probably the long answer is just the lineup. And their teachers, they're there to teach. That's our protocol. If they want to make an offer, you do it when, it's very simple. You go to them after they're done teaching and serving you. Other cool thing, Paul, is the faculty sits many times at the tables during the mastermind. So if you like a
Yeah,
speaker or you're there to meet Jonathan, he might be sitting next to you during the mastermind. I don't know of
yeah.
any events out there that really do that, Paul, at the level we do it.
Yeah, I think the other important thing you're hinting at right now is fellowship. Fellowship
Correct.
is really important. Being in person with being on a being there really isn't much fellowship with when you're on a webinar or even a live meeting. If we had 30 people in the room, it'd be really hard to have the conversation at the water fountain or at the coffee clutch. It's just really hard to do that virtually, but in person, and you make these relationships that last forever that you would never have the opportunity. So I think that might be the big draw for me is to meet up with people that especially the ones who have interviewed, but all
Yeah.
the attendees and things like that. I want to meet more people, bring more people into my world, and also see how I can serve them. So
Yeah. Well, I
it's an
want to add
amazing
something to that.
opportunity.
That's a huge point you bring up, and let me build on that. Dan Kennedy said to me years ago, being an entrepreneur is the loneliest job in the world, Paul.
Hmm.
It
Yeah.
is. I've been at this 20 years, you've been at it a long time as well, my friend. There are days you're like, is it just me? Why am I working so hard? Or am I the only one that's frustrated about this social media campaign? Or I got this bill from my CPA. Am I the only one you feel very lonely? You get to a
Hmm.
live event, you realize you're not alone, and the camaraderie, the fellowship is key. So we already have some people that signed up the last 2 weeks that are like they stay at home, they have businesses successfully from their home. They're going nuts. They've told me like, I got to get out of the house. I need to meet other people like me. I need to get away from this space and meet other people going through
Hmm.
similar challenges and how are they handling it. So that fellowship is a huge component, Paul. Good pickup.
This episode of the Lead Machine Growth Show is brought to you by the 2025 Mind Capture Bootcamp, a high-impact two-day event happening in Grand Rapids, Michigan. You're hearing from one of the speakers today and the founder. But if you want to go deeper, connect in person, and capture some serious momentum, join us live and grab your ticket at mindcapturegroup.com/bootcamp. Bootcamp 2025 and experience what happens when big ideas meet bold action. Yeah, yeah. So as we're going to start wrapping up here, but with some rapid fire questions here. So what's a book that changed your thinking?
Outwitting the Devil
Hmm.
is by far my top five business books. The Bible, of course, as a believer. That better be in there. Okay.
Yeah,
And there's
for
there's
sure.
there's plenty of other ones. The old Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People is another classic. I read that every couple of years just to kind of polish up. Because what's old is new again. In direct marketing, it's things that are 20 years ago, all of a sudden become a fad again. That's not an accident. It's cycles. So I like to
Yeah.
read classic books. So those are a few that really jump out right now.
So what's your favorite quote or mantra?
Wow, I've written a bunch of books on quotes.
I
So,
know.
you know, I would say this is recent. It came up on a phone call. So I'm going to go with the law of recency. If the horse is dead, dismount. It's a quote from the Dakota Nation, one of their chiefs. Okay. What I
Uh-huh.
like about that quote is, as entrepreneurs, sometimes we get so married to an idea, we can't let
Yeah.
it go. And speed and testing is everything. Speed and testing. Money follows speed. That's from Gary Halbert,
Hmm.
the late great copywriter. So
Yeah.
it's letting go
Yeah.
of things, and it's applicable to all of life, but particularly for us that are listening and those at the event. Sometimes you got to go, I got to go this way because it makes more sense. I got to let it go and go that way. And many times you'll be surprised pleasantly, it works.
Yeah. And sometimes, like as Napoleon Hill says,
Mhm.
there are obstacles. So any adversity has an equal and opposite opportunity. You just have to recognize it and seize and take action.
Yes.
So
Yes.
what's one underrated skill that every entrepreneur needs?
Presentation skills, Paul. Again,
Hmm.
a little grain of salt. I've done hundreds of gigs paid around the world and on live webinars as well. But face to face, more leaders of all sizes of companies that I talk with or consult with are telling me our people don't know how to communicate face to face. Not
Hmm.
all. And it's also a demographical challenge. I'm holding up my phone here so people are listening and don't see the visual of this. But people, we've been trained the last 3, 4 years to just really be kind of on a Zoom call. And face-to-face
Hmm.
networking is really getting some like second wind and charging up again. But more leaders say, look, our people don't know how to look each other in the eye. They don't know how to actively listen, to sit and take notes. They want to hide behind email and texting. Nothing wrong with those are tools. However, the top communicators are good at one to one or one to many. And it's Dale Carnegie, like I just mentioned to you, Paul. A lot of what I
Yeah.
share is I'm in the reminding business. It's common sense to me. However, we're
Hmm.
buried with so much data and conflicting opinions and doubt that we sometimes don't trust common sense anymore. So to me, presentation skills one to one, if you can get good at it in the age of digital, my favorite quote that was in one of my books is in the age of digital, you must customize to connect. I've said it for about a
Yeah.
decade, and I didn't know
Hmm.
it'd become more and more relevant each passing day, especially with AI. AI is so damn good now. You're like, I don't know if that was a real human or not. But there's little things that we can do, and a lot of our presenters will share this in Grand Rapids, obviously, is to customize where people go, you care about me. You're different. You actually
Right.
listen to me. You listen to me. What a novel idea, Paul. So there's my quick answer to that one.
Yeah. In my book, Speed to Trust, we talk about how you can start building that trust from the get-go. And it
Uh-huh.
really has to do with giving impact and value first, serving first attitude, and then being totally transparent. I mean, I'm not perfect. We're not
Nobody is.
perfect. And no one's perfect. And so in the pursuit of perfection, there's excellence. So that authenticity is something that we need to do, and doing that face to face is a way to get there. So one more rapid fire question. What is your favorite rock and roll anthem?
Wow. In respect to time, because that was my original plan was to be a rock and roll guitar player.
Yep.
Um, you know, I would say this is gonna sound really, really strange. I'm a huge Pink Floyd fan, and they're
Mm.
a little bit more philosophical, but Shine On You Crazy Diamond is a
Hmm.
very deep, long song, pay off the Animals record. And that song is very deep and I can relate to it, Paul, how you can be misunderstood. So whether you like Pink Floyd or not, it's a long song from the 70s that still connects with me to this day because it's beautiful. It builds up slowly. And it's talking about, their interpretation of a former band member, Sid Barrett. Okay, I've watched countless interviews with Pink Floyd. I've seen them live. One of my favorite rock concerts of all time. That's probably why it's my favorite song. Shine on You Crazy Diamond, to me is just a masterpiece.
Awesome. I love
What's
Pink
yours,
Floyd as
man?
well. Mama, I'm Coming Home.
Oh, Ozzy.
Yeah, Ozzy.
Wow.
It's one of the classic songs, and just beautiful. And it just means, I always, when I'm coming home from work, I call my wife on the phone and I say, Mama, I'm coming home, and I'm
That's
coming home for
awesome,
dinner.
Paul.
And so it's just something that's important to me. So
It's a good one.
there's one or two more questions, if you don't mind.
Let's
Why
do it.
should someone come to see the event live?
You know, I'll use the classic what Dan would tell me. It's not for everybody, Paul. Let
Hmm.
me start with a couple reasons why you have to really think about this. But to your point about why should they come to it, the spark when you leave, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I got dressed up. I invested some money, got in a plane. Maybe I drove in a few hours to get around other people to know that I'm not alone. Goes back to the entrepreneur quote. You will leave
Hmm.
there not motivated, rah, rah. Some people do, but when you leave, you go, that was worth my time and my money. And I met people that I can do business with and follow up with right away. So we want to have maximum ROI on people's time, their money, and their energy. So if that's of interest to somebody, it's not your grandfather's seminar, Paul. The late
Yeah.
Johnny Campbell, a near and dear friend of ours who passed away during COVID, used to tell me, he'd go, TR, he goes, where do you get these people at your event? I'm like, what do you mean, my friend? He goes, they're the most eclectic, energetic, and kind of strange people that all get along. I said, well, I appreciate that. And that to me was a
Yeah.
massive compliment. I miss Johnny so much because he spoke at many of our events, loved him as a
Hmm.
friend. And I know he's in heaven now. The great stage in the sky, I call it. But that
Yeah.
was the best outsider looking in analogy I could find of what that event really is, Paul. And we keep expanding this thing and it gets a little bit more crazy in a good way, positive, of course. But you're not going to find a room of other light workers, go-getters, as Napoleon Hill would say, non-drifters, of humans that are there to put the ego at the door, like we said in the beginning of the interview, to truly lay it out there, good and challenging, to help each other be
Hmm.
successful.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Where can our listeners, find more about your work?
Well, you're welcome, my friend. And real easy, our main page is mindcapturegroup.com. So again, check out mindcapturegroup.com. And Paul, thank you. I know you put the URL up there earlier, the mindcapturegroup.com/bootcamp
Yeah.
2025 numbers. So if people are
Yeah.
interested afterwards, check it out. And that's the quickest way to find me.
Yeah, and so as we wrap up, you just heard a taste of what Tony's insights are, and we're going to go live, and he's going to go even deeper, and he's going to have more surprises, more nuggets of wisdom, and amazing things and people. So get your ticket at mindcapturegroup.com/bootcamp 2025. I'll be there. Tony will be there, and we'd love to see you too. So remember, faith and action go hand in hand. So keep the pedal to the metal. Until next time on the Lead Machine Growth Show, I'm Paul Guyon and Tony Rubleski. Thank you so much, my brother.
You're welcome. Back at you, my brother.
Thank you for tuning in to the Lead Machine Growth Show with Paul Guyon, where we show you how to tackle your tech, master your message, and design your dream so that you can transform your vision into reality. Remember to visit our website at www.leadmachinegrowthshow.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Lead Machine Growth Show.